My name is Ali, I'm a doctor and YouTuber,
I'm Tamor, I'm a data scientist and writer,
and you're listening to Not Overthinking.
the weekly podcast where we think about happiness, creativity, and the human condition.
Hello again, and welcome to Not Overthinking. Tamor, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, it's
So this week you got a PS4.
Whoa, how did you know? All right, full disclosure. This recording that we're doing now is a continuation of the previous episode. So we're continuing on the same theme, and we're recording it in one big batch. And so this little intro doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, it's all just fake. Although I'm sure people appreciate the lack of a 19-minute sort of ramble at the start. And actually, so I'm kind of proud of us in that for the first time ever, we're a few.
Whoa! What did you say?
Sorry. I know. I use the word us, which you don't like. I use the word proud. We will
use the word I, which implies a sense of self, which is problematic.
I'm proud of us because we are doing the actual podcast thing, right? Because the vast majority of podcasts are not recorded on a Sunday night at 11 p.m. and then released half an hour later. The vast majority of podcasts, when they're done properly, are recorded in advance. And so what we're trying to do for these next few weeks is to kind of pre-record, and essentially we're trying to get 2 weeks ahead so that a podcast that we release was actually recorded 2 weeks ago. Because the objective is that we want to try and create clips from the podcast that we can then sort of share on Instagram as a way of kind of growth hacking the podcast. Not really sure how it'll work, but hey, it's just generally useful to be ahead with these sorts of things rather than having to be a mad rush scramble at the last minute. Anyway.
Although, I'd just like to add to that
yes,
I think like a lot of podcasts which would be seen as like quite legit are actually not that organized. So I know for a fact that, for example, the My First Million podcast don't record ahead. They basically record it on like the day or the day before or something every single week. It's not like yeah. And that's like a pretty well produced, like legit podcast.
Well produced.
So
I mean, it's
rather
similarly well produced to our one, and they had similar download numbers last time I checked to us.
Really? Okay, yeah. That's interesting. Okay, yeah, I always thought it was like more of a thing because I guess it's sort of an organization that produces the hustle or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I imagine they've got a dude whose job it is to edit the podcast and kind of find sponsors for it and stuff, but no idea.
Anyway.
But yeah, I think it's worth just being ahead in general. Maybe this whole clipping stuff for Instagram won't work. In which case we can go back to doing things last minute. But it's kind of nice to, for example, that we've got next week's episodes. We've got this week's episode sorted, and we're not recording it right now.
Yep.
Anyway, we are continuing Kevin Kelly's life advice. Thank you, Kevin, for constantly providing us with content. Should we just jump into the next one? So we ended last episode with a long-ass discussion of the phrase, the more you're interested in others, the more interesting they find you. To be interesting, be interested. Tamor, what was the next one on our list? And a big shout out to everyone watching this live. Are you answering questions from the chat? Yes, we sort of are. When they're relevant to the point that we're making, because what we have to keep in mind is that this is ultimately a podcast recording.
Don't we need to do a brilliant segment now?
Oh, we do. Yes. Good point. This episode is kindly brought to you by Brilliant. Yes, that's right, guys. We have a new sponsor. Brilliant are very, very kindly sponsoring this podcast. If you haven't heard of Brilliant, it's probably because you're not watching enough of my YouTube videos. Because Brilliant are a fantastic online platform for learning maths, science, and computer science. They've got amazing interactive courses on all of those. Like basically everything you can think of, but it's not like kind of preparing for exams type level of math, science, and computer science. It's more kind of for general interest, kind of going from first principles, understanding, for example, in maths, the principles of probability, the principles of algebra and number theory. Yes, if you're taking exams, it'll help you with that, but it's more designed for general learning and learning more about the world than it is about trying to get an A star in your A-level maths. The courses that I enjoy in particular are the computer science ones, because I was considering doing computer science when I was instead of doing medicine, and I ended up being a medical student, and I taught myself how to code over the years, as Tamor did as well. But because of that, I'd never really understood the fundamentals of computer science, like what algorithms were and now I'm kind of diving into the brilliant courses on that, along with stuff about neural networks and deep learning and machine learning. And it just like gives you a really nice, accessible introduction to that. So if that sounds up your street, then you should go to brilliant.org/not overthinking. And the first 200 people to go on that URL, that link, will get 20% off the annual premium subscription. It's really good, genuinely. It's like a good way of exercising the mind. So thanks, guys, for sponsoring this episode. How was that, Table?
Yeah, that was pretty good. I'm just thinking that we're saying this on the YouTube live, so actually, I don't know how many people are in this live chat. There's 425 people watching it right now. So actual podcast listeners are going to get screwed because the first 200 things. I mean, I doubt half of the people watching will do it, but yeah, I don't know.
Yes, I've also just checked.
I feel like YouTube gang.
I've also just checked that URL doesn't actually work. I'm just going to message my boy PJ. Sorry, correction. Don't go to brilliant.org/not overthinking because it doesn't work. Just go to brilliant.org and type in not overthinking when you can kind of view as a user a checkout coupon thingy. Anyway, shall we continue with the episode?
Let's do it. All right. So the next piece of advice from Kevin Kelly is optimize your generosity. No one on their deathbed has ever regretted giving too much away. Yep. I'll back it.
I'll buy that. Anything to add on that front?
Yes.
I actually disagree with the framing of this because it implies that being generous is an instrumental way of getting other people to like you, and I think that's deeply problematic. Am I right?
No, that's not. Nah, almost. No, what was I actually going to say? Yeah, the thing I was going to say is that I think there's sort of like a way of looking at things that I think I've come across a few people that look at things in this way, and I don't think it's a terribly good way of looking at things. And I think that the way of looking at things is basically through a lens of something around like justice. Where, if for example, justice or like fairness, where, and a sense of justice and fairness is broadly good, but I'll give you an example. Suppose that, I'm just trying to think of like the right example that would be kind of, broadly understood. Yeah, I guess, look, oftentimes people will be in situations where, you might find yourself in a situation where you can, give me a second. Okay, I'll just give you a concrete example. For example, suppose that let's say, I mean, what's your current living situation? So, you and Molly still live together, right? Or has Molly probably moved out now?
No, we still live together.
Okay, cool. So suppose that, I don't know. Yeah, suppose that so Molly has like a big room, right? Like two people, it's like a double bed and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
Like two people could like live in Molly's room.
Yes.
Suppose that one day Molly decided that, or one day, Jake, Molly's boyfriend, decided to sort of move in, or like needed a place to stay for a few months and wanted to like move in with you guys, right? Now there's kind of two. There's a way of looking at that situation that some people might have, which I think this optimize your generosity advice would be kind of against. One way of looking at it is kind of like, okay, Jake wants to move in. there's now 3 people living here. He can pay half of Molly's rent and contributes to the groceries and all that kind of stuff, whatever. Yeah, there's that way of looking at things. And another way of looking at things is, oh, cool, we're pretty fine with the current setup, you know. Well, we can all kind of afford it or whatever, and yeah, it doesn't cost us anything if Jake wants to, you know, sleep in the room. And I think the latter way of looking at it is what I certainly try to kind of bend towards. Where, yeah, you could make a quick buck out of Jake. Sure, of course you could, and it would be fairly justifiable. Like, he's living in the house, you know, for let's say a couple of months. It's a non-trivial amount of time. You should pay rent or something, right? I think both are like pretty justifiable and pretty like understandable. I think if you generally approach life with a worldview of like, oh yeah, it doesn't cost us anything extra to have an extra person stay in the house, versus there's an extra person getting value out of the house, therefore they should pay for it. I think the former is a nicer way to live.
Yes.
And yeah, the house example is perhaps a little bit extreme, because probably the sort of what you stand to gain from making a quick buck is probably a little bit more than you stand to gain from making a quick buck out of other things, just because I guess housing bucks are typically some of the higher expenditures that people have. But yeah, there's lots of scenarios in which you could make a quick buck and it will be justifiable too. But I think you might be happier in the long term if you don't even worry about that.
Yeah, I definitely very much err towards the side of not really caring about these sorts of things, which again, like, naturally comes from a place of privilege where, like, actually it won't make any difference to my life whether or not Jake contributes a quick buck to the housing rent in the slightest. Equally, when it comes to...
I don't think it's just the privilege. Like, I think I know people from equal levels of financial privilege that would still think in terms of you know, someone is getting value from this, therefore they should pay for it and I can make a quick buck. So I think privilege comes into it for sure, but
yeah, no, I think it's as you said at the beginning, like, it's very much tied up with the issue of justice. So for example, if for example Jake happened to be living in this house for 6 months and I told Mimi that, yeah, I'm not charging him rent because he's a mate and I can't be bothered, she would be like, well, that's not fair. Like, she would be worried that I was being taken advantage of,
right? Yeah,
in that scenario. And I feel like that is I suspect that's probably a major reason as to why people insist on things like, I don't know, splitting the bill, when like assuming the actual economics of it are negligible. Or for example, when it comes to, you know, the other day I ordered pizza for my ward and I just kind of paid for it because I wasn't going to ask other people to be like, hey guys, can you contribute £3.50 to the pizza? Because I just don't care. But for someone else equally in that position of actually economics wise, they actually just don't care. They might think, oh, it's kind of a bit unfair that these people are getting value where they're not paying for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I very much lean towards the optimize your generosity side of things. Although I always feel a little bit icky using the word generous when applied to myself.
Aren't you a hero?
Yeah, check me out. Exactly. Shall we move on?
Yep.
Cool. So the next one is, to make something good, just to do it. To make something great, just to redo it, redo it, redo it. The secret to making fine things is in remaking them.
Yep, love it. This is like classic advice that's given to anyone in any kind of creative field, whether it's, you know, writing, making YouTube videos, making products. Yeah, sort of anti-perfectionism and iterations and quantity over quality in some way.
Although, I suspect that's not what he's trying. Like, it sort of implies that to make something great, for example, if you're making a painting, you kind of redo it and redo it and redo it. It sort of implies that you kind of redo the same painting, which is probably not what he had in mind. He's probably thinking you just need to work at the craft of painting and churn out quantity.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to keep on working on the same piece and keep on redoing it over and over again. But yeah.
Yeah, but I think in some things it also applies on a more granular level. For example, like, you know, pretty popular writing advice is to not worry about your first draft, just get something out there and then, you know, edit, writing. Yeah, rewriting is actually what writing is. You know, that kind of stuff. Anyway, next one. The golden rule will never fail you. It is the foundation of all other virtues. I don't know what the golden rule is.
Oh, mate, the golden rule is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. It's the foundation of all other virtues. I think so. The golden rule is interesting, right? Because it is a very standard part of most systems of morality, and it's one of the things that from what I've read, like the secularists would say as, come on, man, this sort of thing is why human morality is sort of a human construct. It's not like a divine construct. Whereas the religiousists would be like, oh, well, our morality comes from God because A, B, C, D, E. But really, the foundation of basically all moral systems is the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That's the context in which I've kind of most read about this. But yeah.
Wait, what is that context? So, like, are you saying that some religious people might say that, see, religion is good because it encourages you to, like, do unto others as you have them do unto you?
Exactly. Whereas secularists would be like, bro, this is what people have been saying since the dawn of time, since way before there was a recorded religion.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Fair.
Anyway, next. If you're looking for something in your house and you finally find it, when you're done with it, don't put it back where you found it. Put it back where you first looked for it.
Oh, this is great. I've actually been sort of low key doing this for a few years, where I always think about, like, yeah, I always think that, like, my thought process is going to be the same if I do this thing again. And so yeah, I think this has worked well for me.
Yeah, I kind of do that when it comes to which drawer is this specific cable in.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I have in my head a sort of mental representation of all of the different drawers in the house. At the front cupboard, there's sort of like 10 of them available. At my desk, there's like 8 of them available. And I think, like, for example, when it comes to that fat USB cable that connects the printer to my laptop, that's probably going to be in the front cupboard on drawer number 3, because it's a niche sort of cable, but it's not so niche that it's in front cupboard drawer number 10, because that's where the really super niche cables are. And then I kind of always make it a point to put it back where I would think to look for it initially.
Yeah, yeah. I think that there's always, like, I think in these kinds of scenarios where you're trying to figure out what the past you did, there's, like, infinite levels of second guessing yourself, where you could think, oh, I would have put it back there. Oh, but what if I thought that and put it out there? Yeah. And I think it's quite a skill in, like, picking, cutting it off after the first level.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, knowing when not to, like, second guess yourself.
It's like if I'm trying to find my keys or my AirPods, like, those are the two things I lose most often. It's like, where the hell would I have put it?
Yeah.
But now it's quite nice because with the AirPods, I've got a single wireless charger in the bedroom that I use for my phone at night. But then when I come into the house, I will take my AirPods out, put them on charge on this wireless charger, and then at night I'll just move them over a bit. So the AirPods are always next to the phone. Although recently I've been super, super engrossed in the Wheel of Time series on Audible, so I've just been listening to them, like, even outside of commuting. It's not very
Audible
productive.
getting some free promo on
God,
podcast.
yeah, audible.com/Ollie Abdal. Doesn't go anywhere. I wish.
All right, cool. Next one. Saving money and investing money are both good habits. Small amounts of money invested regularly for many decades without deliberation is one path to wealth. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah,
I
like
think we
that.
both back it. We talk about this occasionally, so let's not dwell on that.
To make mistakes is human. To own your mistakes is divine. Nothing elevates a person higher than quickly admitting and taking personal responsibility for the mistakes you make and then fixing them fairly. If you mess up, fess up. It's astounding how powerful this ownership is. Yeah, like that.
Yep.
I made a mistake at work the other day.
Really?
Yeah. But, like, every time I make a mistake at work, I always kind of, like, own up to it, like, very, like, as soon as I possibly can, because I've just found, like, in other aspects of life, people will always appreciate it when you're upfront about the mistake that you made. So it's always nice. And people
What was the mistake?
You
You killed someone.
We'll talk about that afterwards. No, the mistake. So essentially, so when you come on during the day, you get a handover from the night team about stuff that needs to be done that day. And there was a case where I'm keeping this deliberately very vague, where something had to be done, and the team sort of joked that actually it didn't have to be done. And I took that at face value, but didn't. But actually, it was a joke, and later they corrected it to be like, oh, actually, no, we should do the thing. But I hadn't been listening at that time, so I just assumed the thing didn't need to be done because they were like, oh, let's not do the thing. And then the thing wasn't done, and that thing led to a patient coming into hospital when they shouldn't have been, when they wouldn't have needed to had I done the thing. And so the morning that I found out, I went to the consultant and I said, I've done a bad thing. And then she started laughing and she was like, oh God, what have you done? And then I explained and she was like, oh, okay, that's not too bad.
Like, but it's not like there's someone unconscious. They're joking about, I guess we probably shouldn't resuscitate them, should we? And you're like, oh, okay, all right.
No, it was exactly like that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, nice. All right. Next one. Never get involved in a land war in Asia. Any idea what he's talking about here?
I think it's deeply problematic.
Racist against Asia.
Yeah, I have no idea what he's talking about there.
All right, cool.
You can obsess about serving your customers/audience/clients, or you can obsess about beating the competition. Both work, but of the two, obsessing about your customers will take you further. Yeah, like that.
Nice, good stuff. I feel like it's kind of related to stuff that we often talk about
like anti-competition,
having a positive sum. Yeah, anti-competition and positive sum worldview, kind of intrinsically driven, all this kind of stuff. Cool. Next one is show up, keep showing up. Somebody successful said 99% of success is just showing up. Yep, I back it. We've talked about this stuff all the time.
Yeah, this is like episode 2 of the podcast about like consistency or something that people say is like a really legit one. Ooh, just got a comment in the chat saying, Ali looks so cute, lol. Oh, thank you, the year of change. That's very kind. Sorry, I just had to get that in there. Okay, next one. Right. We've got separate the processes of creation from improving. You can't write and edit, or sculpt and polish, or make and analyze at the same time. If you do, the editor stops the creator. While you invent, don't select. While you sketch, don't inspect. While you write the first draft, don't reflect. At the start, the creator mind must be unleashed from judgment. Yeah, this is the sort of stuff I live for. This is absolutely on the money.
Love it.
What I think about is the phrase the acronym FBR, which stands for fast, bad, wrong, and that is what the first draft is always. It's always fast, it's always bad, and it's always wrong. And I always like this is. I came across this like last year, and it's something that I like every single day when I'm writing stuff. I always I think FBR in my head so that the inner critic doesn't stop the words from flowing onto the page.
Nice. Yeah, nothing to add. Cool. Next one is if you're not falling down occasionally, you are just coasting. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, all about taking a certain level of risk.
Yeah, agreed. Right, next. We still got about 20 to go, so let's blitz through these. Perhaps the most counterintuitive truth of the universe is that the more you give to others, the more you'll get. Understanding this is the beginning of wisdom. Sounds like you should be giving to others not for the sake of getting back from them, but just for the sake of giving.
Yeah. So I always, this doesn't sit this, and I'm not even kidding. Like a lot of people say that like, oh, there's like this karma thing, like, if you're nice to other people, then the universe will reward you or something. And you shouldn't do it for that reason. But yeah, fine, I back it. Next one, friends are better than money. Almost anything money can do, friends can do better. In so many ways, a friend with a boat is better than owning a boat. Oh, mate, that's so good.
That's really good.
Dude, that's genius. I've heard, actually, side note, I've heard lots of like... So there's like rich people, and then there's like boat rich people. And I've heard a lot of boat rich people complain about how lame it is to own a boat. And how actually it's like a massive pain in the arse. And it's some like weird status symbol amongst like the boat rich, like having the biggest boat at the harbor or something. Not harbor. There's like a more like pretentious version of a harbor. At the marina. Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's so good. I often Yeah, I think I've encountered this same concept a bunch of times where I feel like there's like asymmetric gains to be made from basically from like sharing things. So, for example, in St. Albans, we live in like a gated community that has, I don't know, a few dozen sort of flats slash houses, and there's like a big sort of landscaped communal garden that looks really nice and sort of is available for everyone to hang out in. I always think that like this is so cool. Like I don't care about having a private garden. What do I get out of having a private garden? It seems like a win-win-win if a bunch of people pool together so that they can all have a sick landscaped garden that's really well taken care of, and everyone can benefit from that at no cost to everyone else. And yeah, I always think that there's like so many situations in which, yeah, just sort of pooling resources and sharing them is way better than sort of everyone trying to go it their own way. You know, economies of scale, blah blah blah. And I think what it mostly comes down to is sort of trustless communication almost. So,
What do you mean?
for
What's
example,
trustless communication?
so for example, if you're friends with someone, you can that there's a lower cost in all your communication because you assume you can trust the other party,
Yeah.
right? And so I think for example, between the two of us, some of our financial stuff is like shared or whatever, right? Like we both have that mortgage on your flat, and
Mortgage
I
on our
often
flat
think
table.
right. And I often think that like it would be so much of a pain. It's nice having these kinds of mutually beneficial financial arrangements with people you trust because there's so much less nonsense involved. Like if for example I was trying to buy a flat with a complete stranger, you know, there's going to be a large overhead for both people in making sure that the other party isn't going to screw them, and it's very asymmetrically useful to be able to assume reasonably that the other party is not going to screw you, and so it allows you to do things that otherwise you wouldn't really be able to do.
Yes, fully back that. I'm going to do a YouTube live stream with this dude called Tynan at some point next month. I think I've talked about him on the podcast before. He's like this blogger who famously pulled together with 10 friends to all buy an island a few years ago. They each put in, I mean, he hasn't said exactly how much it was, but I think kind of low six figures. So each kind of friend put in between like $10,000 and $30,000 or something like that. And like 10 of them bought this island together. And yeah, apparently it's absolutely sick because they could all like spend time. And he's got like properties in Tokyo and Budapest and Las Vegas that sort of co-owned with friends. And the theory is that like, they don't like rent them out because then it becomes a real pain in the bum. And the idea is that at any time, if you want to go to Tokyo, there is a house there for you. And if someone else is using it, that's even better because now you're hanging out with friends while you both in Tokyo together.
Yeah.
So I think that's like an incredible sort of model that like I would love to find the right group of people to kind of pull together with to do something like that.
Yep. Yeah. That example is even better where like, it's not just like a neutral thing that it's like fine if you're both using the garden, but it's actually better if you're both using the garden. So that's even better. I think this is, so a while ago, there was an economist, I think in like the 1930s, who was basically sitting around and wondering about why do firms exist? Why do people organize into these groups called companies to accomplish things together rather than everyone being kind of like a solo person, and, transacting with other people, like, getting a contractor to do this and getting a different contractor to do the other thing and so on. And basically I think it's something Coase. Richard, let me just look it up. Ronald Coase. He got a Nobel Prize for this, for coming up with why firms exist. And they basically exist to reduce the transaction costs between the people in the firm. So, and that's basically what I'm trying to get at with like, there's very low transaction costs of you and I doing stuff together because there's, implicit trust and then, mutual mental models for how things work and a shared worldview and all this kind of stuff. The that's the reason why people organize into companies, is because when you are organized into a company where you're all under this umbrella, it lowers the transaction costs. It makes it cheaper for you to collaborate on things. I guess because there's trust and shared language and knowledge and all this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that's why companies exist. And yeah, I guess this is like treating your personal life a bit more like business, almost like creating firms of you and your friends to collaborate together in ways that benefit everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Like, okay, so practically speaking, what is something that you and I can do together with friends in this sort of domain in the next sort of like in the short term? Because buying an island or buying a house in Budapest is probably sort of out of the question. But I wonder if there's anything equivalent. When I was part of the Wilderness Medicine Society at Cambridge, there were a few people on the committee who, whose like their families were in this collective with like 30 other families, and they would kind of buy up these cottages in like really nice like national park type areas, such that whenever anyone wanted, you could just kind of see if anyone was using cottage, and then you could go to the cottage as long as you arranged for it to be cleaned and stuff afterwards. That seemed like a very good, a good model.
Yeah.
Is there something like that
good.
we could do?
I think like just shared resources in general. Like at university, for example, there was a friend of mine who's, to some extent, I had a bike that at one point became community property. And
so you're saying that your bicycle was ridden like the tan, like the tan bicycle?
Is that a phrase?
Yeah, that's an old school slur.
That's so funny. Yeah. Yeah, my bike was literally the town bike for a group of people. Where, yeah, people would just hit me up. Yeah, it was known that I had a bike and that I didn't care about people using it. And so I would get hit up a few times a week, people saying, hey, can I borrow a bike from this time to this time? And yeah, they'd come and take my bike. And I think that was useful for everyone. And I think more people can do stuff like that. But some people, I don't know, I think at university, I encountered an aversion to doing stuff like that. I found that fewer people than I expected were willing to do things like that. I mean, specifically on the bike front. Like some people just had this thing against it of like, oh, I don't want to lend out my bike. What if something happens? What do you mean, what if something happens? Something can happen while you're riding your bike.
Yeah, like I would have. So I was big on having like a communal room essentially, and I'd even go so far as to leave it unlocked, even when I wasn't in. And it was like really nice because like occasionally I'd come into my room to find that like, you know, a friend was already in there with some of their friends from London who were visiting Cambridge, and actually they needed a place to just chill out for a few hours in town centre. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like, you know, it's like I was never once annoyed by it. It was more like, oh, this is fantastic. I get this free social contact, and now I get to make friends with these new people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. It just seems like such a no-brainer, and yet like I was very much in the sort of minority of people who would do that. And then one time we had like a burglary in college, and someone's laptop got stolen from their room or something. And then my friend Jake asked, you know, is this gonna make you lock your laptop? And then I said, no, mate, it's all about the gambler's fallacy, you know. Like there was a certain probability of theft, and the fact that this event has happened has not increased the future probability of theft. Therefore, I'm going to continue to leave my room completely unlocked. And he was like, yeah.
I think your decision making is actually wrong there, and I think a lot of people kind of misinterpret that as like a gambler's fallacy kind of situation.
Why is my decision making wrong?
I think your decision making is wrong there because, okay, let's say.
Are you saying that the fact that the event has happened increases the probability it might happen in the future?
No, it increases the fact that the event happened means that your initial estimate for the probability of the event happening was probably slightly low. For example, let's say you used to believe that there's a 1% chance of a robbery in your college at a given day.
Yep.
Let's say a robbery happens.
Yep.
You're like, if one robbery happens, it's like
once a year.
Yeah, you know.
That's I probably overestimate the probability of my room being robbed on
Yeah,
a given day. Yeah.
no. If it happens once a year, fine. But it's a rare event, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's probably not happening once a year. And so if it happens once, there's two things you can think. You can think, oh, okay, yeah, I mean, it's still pretty low chance. Or, and I think this is probably worth taking into account, you can think, oh, a robbery happened unexpectedly. Maybe my initial estimate was actually too low. And for example, if like 3 robberies happen, at that point you would then think, okay, my estimate was too low. Maybe I should lock the door. You know, if robberies are happening every week, you would reevaluate your estimate, right?
I would, yes.
And so, right. And so, like, when it comes to rare events, if a robbery happens, once, twice, or 3 times in a week, it's just a matter of like scale, right? It's not like a different thing. And so if it happens once, it's not like completely a case of, the rate is actually, you should revise your rate in your head for it to be slightly higher than you expect, probably. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I don't think it applies in these sorts of circumstances where you know that there is a non-zero risk of a room getting burgled. You find that someone's room was burgled, and that's happened once in your living memory. I think it would be unwise for that to significantly change my decision making. Bearing in mind that the only other decision I can now make is to lock my room. Like, on the basis of that one burglary, my actions should remain identical.
No. I think you're going too far. When you're saying my actions should remain identical on that basis of one burglary, actually no, your actions should remain identical,
Yes,
but your thinking should
my
be
thinking
slightly
should
different.
be like, okay, cool, maybe.
And so
Fine.
Yeah, and so
but either way,
it's not
like,
this case of the gambler's fallacy.
Wait, so that doesn't. Is it not?
It's not the case. It's not the case. Look, your actions are not like this continuous thing. It's like a discrete thing of like, okay, once the risk reaches above a certain threshold, I will start locking my door.
Yeah.
So there could be 2 burglaries in a year, and you might still leave your door open.
Yeah.
But there could be 2 burglaries in a year, and you might then increase your level of, I think this is how often burglaries happen. And so
Sure.
you should still sort of,
but I think that's still my understanding of gambler's fallacy is that it's the fallacy that an event has happened once, that the fact that event has happened does not actually influence subsequent the probability of subsequent events. It's like the fact that I've rolled 2 6s in a row does not change the fact that I still have the same exact probability as I did before of rolling a third 6.
Yes, 100%. But for example, if you get 1,000 6s in a row, it should increase the probability in your head of, maybe this dice is rigged, right?
Yes, fine.
So that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay. But what I'm saying is that this was sure. If
I agree. That it depends on numbers.
Yeah.
I was kind of being nitpicky because I think it was an incorrect application of a very specific thing that people think. So I think it was worth nitpicking on that because I think what I'm describing is actually useful. I think in your example, probably based on the numbers involved, it wouldn't have changed your actions. But I think it's a trap that you can fall into.
Oh. Okay, cool, interesting. I will take your word for that as the probability maestro. We've got a few comments. So Jack Milton says, "Ali, your nose takes up my whole screen." Thank you.
Damn.
We've got Kodu Guys, legend, who says calls us cows. We've got someone who says Ali and Temur grab a lot of attention in Indian media. We've got Amatul who says, "Tamir, please talk more as I'm tired of listening to Ali." Right, so do you want to do the next one?
All right. Next one is, it's hard to cheat an honest man.
Ali.
Molly, I'm in the middle of a podcast recording, which is being live streamed. What can I help you with?
Which way is west?
Which way is west?
Yeah. Apparently there's a rocket going past.
What?
Apparently there's a rocket going past to the west.
Which way is
Can we
west?
see it?
I don't know.
Well, I can tell you which way is southeast. Southeast is that way that you're currently facing, which means north is there,
East.
which means west is there. So look in that direction. Sorry. This is true.
Wait, can we actually see the rocket with our eyes from here?
I mean, I don't know.
Surely.
I'm looking at you on a computer screen.
All right, whatever.
Anyway, right.
All right,
Let's.
this one was. It's hard to cheat an honest man.
Cool. Fine.
Yeah, good.
Okay, we need to just blitz through the rest. When an object is lost, 95% of the time it's hiding within arm's reach of where it was last seen. Search in all possible locations in that radius and you'll find it. Yeah.
Dude, Kevin Kelly loses a lot of stuff. About like 2% of the insights he's gained in life are about how to find stuff he's lost. Probably like 5% actually.
Imagine if he spent like every year of his life thinking about one of these. He'd be spending a lot of time. Anyway.
All right. Next one is: you are what you do, not what you say, not what you believe, not how you vote, but what you spend your time on.
Yeah, I back that.
Yeah.
Okay, if you lose or forget to bring a cable, adapter, or charger, check with your hotel. Most hotels now have a drawer full of cables, adapters, and chargers that others have left behind, and probably have the one that you're missing. You can often claim it after borrowing it.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
That's good. I'm always pleasantly surprised by what you can ask people for at a hotel.
Yeah, hotels are like, I think they're the original sort of people who cared about UX, user experience. Like their job is for you to feel like calm and peaceful and taken care of. And yeah, I've always found hotels to be very helpful when it comes to that stuff. Yeah, I think a lot of the time, you can afford not to pack certain things because like a hotel will have them, and it's basically their job to have them. Anyway,
yeah, it's like
next one.
It's like a few times I've forgotten toothbrush and toothpaste, and I think the first few times I was really annoyed. I was like, oh damn, what am I going to do? And then one time I just tried asking at the desk, and they were like, yeah, here you go. I was like, oh
yeah, you can ask for anything. Yeah, you can ask for like an ironing board if your room doesn't come with it. Yeah, basically anything you can think of, they probably have it. All right, cool. The next one is: hatred is a curse that does not affect the hated; it only poisons the hater. Release a grudge as if it was a poison.
Yeah,
I back it.
There is no. Fine, continue.
On that note, I think there's a trap that can be fallen into where you're having a negative emotion that's like net affecting you negatively, but there is a small part of that which you're getting a kick out of, which is typically some sense of righteousness or some sense of like, woe is me. It's either righteousness or self-pity or something. And it's these kinds of like sort of satisfying slivers within a negative emotion can trick you into sort of wallowing in a negative emotion because like it kind of feels good in some sick perverted way when actually it's just doing you harm.
Yeah, I back that. Right, next. There is no limit on better. Talent is distributed unfairly, but there is no limit on how much we can improve what we start with.
Yep, love it. Growth mindset, etc. Next one is: be prepared. When you are 90% done on any large project, the rest of the myriad details will take a second 90% to complete.
Oh,
mate,
man.
so true, so true.
Mate, we've been on 90% completion for my new website launch for the past like 2 months.
Really,
it just takes far too long.
Yeah, I always encounter this doing like design stuff, where like the stuff that takes you spend the most time on the a few very specific pixels sometimes.
Okay, I think we should actually stop there because there are still about like 10 to 15 to go, and we can save these if we ever need an episode in the future. But
all right,
I think this is a good place to end part 3 of the Kevin Kelly 68 life lessons. Thank you very much, Kevin. Do you want to read a review and we'll call it a night?
Cool. All right, reviews. We have now had almost 1,500 ratings on the store. Uh,
Bloody hell, my thing stopped recording.
what?
My thing stopped recording. I think it's
When?
because I think it's when I switched the screen thingy. Oh, it doesn't matter. Either way, like I've got decent audio recorded on the live stream.
All right, this review comes from So Martito in the United States of America. It's entitled Awesome Convo. So Martito says, pretty interesting convo between two brothers about intellectual topics. Love it. It's very unique and new with less ego involved compared to a lot of other podcasts. It's also interesting to hear different perspectives. Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Any
Do you have an insight?
insight of the week? I've been I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I've been writing 1,000 words a day for the past.
Oh, yeah. How is that going?
It's good. It's actually very doable every day. I wrote like 2,000 words yesterday.
When do you
And
do it?
I just sort of like I find moments throughout the day. So like if I'm at work, then I'll just open up Roam on the work computers, and I'll just sort of throughout the day I'll just be adding to the daily note or whatever. And now I've built like this new sort of categorization system. It's quite cool. It's cool is a strong word, but it's like every
Check out my categorization system.
it's like I've started using noun labels for certain types of pages. So for example, if it's a book, if it's kind of notes from a book, I will use the $ in book. If it's a person, I'll use $person. If it's like a podcast, $podcast, and the $ is the noun that thing refers to, if that makes sense. And then for my own writing, so for example, if I'm working on like a blog post or something, I've got like a 4-tiered approach to this. It's like it starts off as an idea, and then it can be it's an embryo, a fetus, and a neonate, and those are like the four bits of it. So like if it's not fleshed out at all, it's just an idea. If I start writing stuff, it becomes an embryo, and then it changes to fetus, and then it graduates to being a neonate, and then goes into Notion, where I kind of flesh it out into a blog or a video or whatever. And this has like been a nice way. And then I use the query feature in Roam to sort of automatically tell me a list of all my embryos and fetuses and
Right.
neonates.
Yeah.
And then it means that if I need to write something, I just kind of look through the list and just start typing away at something. And
Yeah.
just having that kind of default system has meant that I don't have to think about, oh crap, what do I want to write today, which has always been the biggest stumbling block in my writing.
That's actually pretty cool. Like, what do you write about? Like, what have you gained from this practice so far?
Let me find some. So for example, yesterday I wrote a blog post about the launch of this Anki Skillshare class and kind of the behind the scenes of that. Today, what was it? I think the other day I was on my list was like a video about how to type faster, so I just kind of drafted out some of that. I wrote a few days ago, my friend Ben messaged me asking about how to get started with investing, so I was like, oh, that would make for a good video. So I just kind of sat there and just kind of wrote out like 1,500 words on how to get started with investing. So just sort of things like that, where every day I just sort of pick something and then start writing about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like writing about topics rather than like personal introspection kind of stuff.
I mean, there's a personal introspection as well. Like if I'm struggling, if I don't have a specific topic, then I will do the whole morning pages thing of just sort of writing whatever comes to mind. And then usually through doing that, I will like within a few minutes, I'll come up with some sort of topic that I can then expand my thoughts on.
Oh, okay.
So that's like my
Nice.
insight of the week.
Yeah, that sounds pretty neat. I might give this a go.
Would recommend. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Have you got an insight of the week, or should we just call it?
Yeah, I do have an insight of the week, actually. If you don't mind.
By all means.
I think I realized this week that I'm a complete slave to branding, basically. I found out that, basically, since we moved to the UK, we mostly have had PG Tips tea bags, right? And I've always been pretty happy with this, and I've always strongly believed that PG Tips is obviously the best one because it has by far the best branding. It has this like, if you're in the UK, I don't know why other countries sell PG Tips, but if you look at the shelf of tea, PG Tips is, by and large, obviously the best like mainstream tea brand, by the looks of it. Like they do such a good job that when I'm drinking PG Tips, it feels like I'm, I'm like contributing to the World War II effort or something. I feel this like connection to to the country or something.
You feel strongly about PG Tips.
I don't know how they've managed it, but I feel that way. But then I think a few weeks ago they didn't have PG Tips or something. We had Tetley tea in the house. Tetley with another tea brand. Their packaging looks awful. It looks trash. We had Tetley tea for some reason, and you know, we were using it for like a couple of months or something, and then we recently switched back to PG Tips, and I realized that whoa, Tetley is actually way better than PG Tips. And yeah, like
people in the chat are saying PG Tips is a god awful tea.
okay, someone's saying Yorkshire is better than PG Tips.
Yorkshire tea is the best tea.
Yeah, I think I just looked at the brands and thought like, oh yeah, this is obviously the best one. I didn't even need to try the other ones. Whereas, yeah, I guess don't judge a tea bag by its outer packaging.
Yeah. So that's a good insight for the week. That would actually be that would actually be a good clippable bit that we can then use for Instagram promo. I'm trying to find like bits like that for the pod.
Yeah, get that Tetley tea sponsorship.
Exactly. PG Tips, screw you guys.
Nice. All right. I think we'll end it there. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye guys, and thank you for tuning in on the live.
That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on the Apple Podcasts website if you're not using an iPhone. There's a link in the show notes.
If you've got any thoughts on this episode or any ideas for new podcast topics, we'd love to get an audio message from you with your conundrum, question, or just anything that we could discuss.
Yeah, if you're up for having your voice played on the podcast and your question being the springboard for our discussion, email us an audio file MP3 or voice note to hi@notoverthinking.com.
If you've got thoughts but you'd rather not have your voice played publicly, that's fine as well. Tweet or DM us at NOverthinking on Twitter, please.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.